So I do want to ask you, I feel like we are on the precipice of a really perilous time of true authoritarianism coming to the United States. And someone like you, who has been such a leader on the progressive left, has such a massive role to play in this moment as a stalwart of resistance, as so many of these centrists are kowtowing to the right. And then I see you on the same stages with, and in the same rooms with, the right-wingers who are mouthpieces of said authoritarianism. And I don't believe that you are actually pushing back. Instead, and I think there's a project here, you're trying to find points of agreement. So what are you doing, and why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah. So I appreciate that, that you're having me on as opposed to talking about me and raging, et cetera, without actually getting into the full conversation. So, look, first let me acknowledge, Franny, that I get why people are concerned. So you've seen this pattern a number of times. So people think, oh, this is the beginning of the pattern. We know how that ends, right? So you see Dave Rubin go talk to Tucker Carlson once. You say, oh, okay, he's defending our side or finding a point of agreement, whatever, right? But then next thing you know, he agrees with Tucker again and again and again and again. And then all of a sudden he's talking about how bad the left is and how, my favorite example about how the forest fires in California started because the fire departments allowed gay people to join.
Right. Wild.
Yeah, and Franny, we've seen this movie many times, and me especially as a Muslim, because Israel always finds collaborators and to come out and go, oh, look at this Muslim guy. He says Muslims are violent, and it is in their book, and it's all their fault, right? And one of those mouthpieces. So I understand, guys, that pattern exists, and so why people would be concerned the minute it seems like you're taking a first step there. But it is possible to not do that pattern, and we are not doing that pattern, and there's massive differences there, right? So they let go of all their positions, we've let go of none of our positions. And people think this is after the election, but Franny, as you know, I've been battling what I call the far left for years now. So I think it's a perfectly...
Why is there such a fixation on Cenk? It's pretty obvious he's having a midlife crisis moment with the Democratic Party and is fencing because of it, right? I don't know what this, none of this has anything to do with the midlife crisis. I think it's just interesting to see, like, the Young Turks has turned out so many, like, left to right people. It's actually kind of insane, right? Did Jimmy Dore come from the Young Turks? Dave Rubin came from the Young Turks. You've seen Anna and Cenk are doing this weird left-to-left kind of thing. Like,
find area of disagreement to have within a movement. I know that some people think, no, we're not allowed to disagree, and any disagreement is heresy, right? And that's a core thing that we'll probably discuss here.
Was Tim Pool ever on the Young Turks? I think he was, no, it was Vice, right? Or he worked for Vice a little.
Today, right? That's one of the issues. And so now in terms of, so why am I doing it? Or how did it come about? So how it came about is when I was doing that protest to run against Biden, I went on all the shows I possibly could, left-wing, right-wing, et cetera.
You believe you are doing, and I want to just explain, by showing, and I want to ask you what you think the goal is of what you are doing. But here was a moment where you were on TV USA's, on Turning Point USA's conference, and Charlie Kirk, who is a Christian nationalist, he's an avowed Christian nationalist.
As an ex-Muslim, I hate it when people who are clearly not Muslim describe themselves as Muslims just to push an argument. Yeah, it's actually really crazy. I think it's funny because like the contrast is for Jewish people. Like, I'll talk to Jewish people who are like, oh, you're Jewish. Are you like religious at all? And they're like, oh, no, I'm not culturally Jewish. I'm not religious. I don't do I'm not Jewish like at all. I'm just like ethnically. It's like, oh, okay. But these people like kind of follow Shabbat, or they like take like Fridays off, or Fridays or whatever off. They like kind of like moderate their diet. Like they kind of follow rules. I'm like, why the fuck do you even do this? And then they celebrate the holidays. It's like, okay, whatever. But they won't claim that they're Jewish or that they do any of the cultural shit at all. Meanwhile, in the US, it feels like so many people, I could also be just dramatically overrepresenting this because my experience with like Hassan and others. So many people who are like 1% Arab, like in their great grandfather, like, oh, I'm culturally Muslim. When they say culturally Muslim, it literally means that they don't always order like BLTs. Like, that's it. They drink, they do drugs, they party, they'll go to brothels or whatever. They do every other possible, they gamble, every fucking possible thing you can do. It's like, what the fuck about you is culturally Muslim? What are you talking about? Do you just mean that you have some Arab or Middle Eastern, like Turkish or Persian ancestry? Like, what the fuck do you mean culturally Muslim? Like, you don't do anything. You don't follow anything. Like, they'll joke about like Ramadan and shit, but they literally do nothing. They don't pray. They don't follow any tradition. They do nothing. But also maybe this is different in other places. Maybe if you go to like Dearborn, Michigan, maybe people do things where they celebrate or they pay attention to fasting or whatever. But I don't know. That's just...
TPUSA has had wildly racist and white supremacists associated with them, including inviting people like Nick Fuentes to speak. No matter what you think of his thoughts on BlackRock, here is him asking you about left media. And I got to say, Cenk, this one sucked real hard for me. And you also, I think, have been using these opportunities to talk a lot about the left to the right.
I think the left has some work to do in developing over-the-top media to be able to bypass the main networks.
Yeah, so we have TYT as a giant network, but we have a lot of great progressive and populist shows that are not part of TYT. That's in the left-wing ecosystem.
I just want to stop and say I'm excited to hear which ones you like, given that you just sort of insulted Emma Vigeland just now. I'm curious which ones you actually do still support that aren't your own, but I'm going to keep going, Cenk. Hang on.
Yes. Examples. Please always push for examples. Yes.
So I don't think that that's the issue. I don't think that there isn't enough shows. I think that there's a couple others. One, on the right...
At Destiny, like who exactly... Turks are not very religious, but Frogan, for example, follows some Islamic laws. Frogan has nothing to do with healthcare, like she says she's a healthcare expert, or nothing to do with Islam. That is 100% a grift. She is 100% a grifter. She can give a fuck about any religious bullshit, okay? You will never convince me otherwise.
You guys do a great job of coalescing, okay? So you do a couple things well. You work together well, and you're more welcoming, if I'm being honest.
We're glad Cenk's here, right, everybody?
And a lot of people on the left know this as well. If you agree with MAGA 5%, the answer you get is welcome, right? Come join us, right? On the left, if you disagree 5%, they go, get out of here, you're a right winger, you're a fascist, right? But if you push enough people out and you guys welcome enough people in, eventually you win the popular vote. That's what I warned them about, and that's what happened, right?
Okay, so there you are, and
Yeah, I love it. Stick with 100% of what I just said there. I'm 100% right about that. So let's discuss.
Yeah, let's discuss. You had your say there, and you've been saying various degrees of that same thing. And I gotta say, like, I watched the whole clip, and it started off, and I was like, this is pretty good. This is good. Like, pretty good interview. I like that you're sitting down. It wasn't bad. This moment, like, truly a part of me died when I watched it.
Wow, I can't believe that.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
go ahead.
Super. Just shriveled up and died, floated away into the ocean. Here's what happens. A couple things. He asks you about left-wing media and why there isn't more left-wing media, which already, as you are there, in the sort of kingdom of turning points, is like, that's such a dig. Like, why are you guys so weak is effectively what he's saying. And instead of pointing out the way that TPUSA has been bankrolled by Republican mega donors out of Chicago and many other places for years now, and talking about how the Daily Wire was funded by the fracking brothers,
It's like this weird illusion where, like, Charlie Kirk is presenting the whole right-wing movement as like this organic, ground-swelling, grassroots supported, and like ignoring the 52 different billionaires that Donald Trump has in his cabinet, or all of the other big money that goes into these things. Meanwhile, accusing the left, like, does George Soros, has he ever donated any amount of money ever to any fucking YouTube or alternative media thing ever? Like, I'm legitimately asking, has Soros ever made a contribution to any of these people? What the fuck?
brothers. Now they're fishing for new, investors, whatnot, but that there is so much money on the right. He handed this answer to you on a fucking platter, and all you said was, you know what? You guys are really good at being welcoming. People just like you. Cenk, they've got all the money. What are you talking about? That's effectively what you're good at coalescing. And here's my question to you about so that's just number one on the media, because that just stings because I'm in media. But on the 5%, if you disagree with MAGA 5%, they still welcome you. How did that work out for Liz Cheney?
Yeah. So look,
or Kissinger. Yes. Kissinger? Kissinger. Wait, I don't even know what his first name is. Kinzinger. Fuck. Bro, fuck these names. Be normal.
Kinzinger.
This is a video. Shut up. Wrong one.
Is there a part of MAGA that'll push you out? Of course. That's what we know.
When did they push you out, Cenk? When did they push you out?
When you don't support Donald Trump and his agenda, 100%.
Largely when you disagree with Trump.
Exactly.
So listen,
this is the thing it's the unspoken thing that you're never saying, that ultimately it's all hunky-dory. Elon can tweet back at you. Vivek can listen to you. But if you defy Donald Trump, the God Emperor, you're kicked out of the castle. And no one's defending Liz Cheney. Screw both their castle and the other castle. But Liz Cheney voted with Donald Trump 98% of the time, and just the 1% when she was like, hey, you know what? You can't do a coup on this country. And Adam Kissinger, and they were gone. So,
which is the same reason they don't like not Cheney, Mitch McConnell, right?
Miss me with this 5% BS, yo.
So, all right, Franny, a whole bunch of things here. So, number one, you're right. That's definitely how the Turning Point started. Daily Wire certainly started that way. I don't know what their current funding is, but they seem to have a lot more funding than any of us do. So, you're right, and I have said that in the past, and I probably should have put that in there in that particular appearance, and I will mention that, and that'll really grate on their nerves. But I've got no problems telling their audience, and I tell them all the time, no, you guys have way more money, and they're always shocked by that. And I'm like, because they're swimming in money and don't realize how much we're starving out here on the left.
They even got Russian money. Look at Dave Rubin and Tim Pool and Benny Johnson. Where was that money for people on the left?
Right. Sure. So, and I talked on Tim Pool's show about that, et cetera. Now, when it comes to the 5%, 95%, yeah, I hear you. So it's when you disagree with Trump, especially in the past, especially in the first term, et cetera, you're a gunner, right? But they are pushing back even on Trump now. So again, on things that we don't agree with, but on COVID, for example, they thought that Trump did too much COVID protections, et cetera.
No, they pushed back on the vaccine. Nobody blames Trump for lockdowns. When you talk about lockdowns, I say that wasn't Donald Trump. That was the states.
And there was and this is really encouraging. When I talk about Team Miriam, Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik, Mike Huckabee, and Mike Walz, so those are the four that put in by the neocons put in by Miriam Adelson. In the old days, what I would have gotten for any is, no way, they're the greatest. They're not neocons. You're a liar. Trump's the best. Now what I'm getting from the right-wing hosts, which is amazing, and let alone the base, they're all saying, yeah, I hear you. We got concerns about them. We got concerns. Okay.
Marco Rubio, was that part of Miriam? Because he's the nominee for the fucking State Department head now, right? You're aware of that, right? That Marco Rubio is the nominee to be the head of the State Department? Do we know that, or is that like top secret? Am I leaking something there?
Okay, so that's the thing I never heard before. So that is a change. Now, in terms of the concept that I'm referring to, the 5%, 95%, but Franny, we're in the middle of that right now. This is the perfect example. So I started the largest progressive network. I've given dozens of progressives opportunities they didn't have before. I started Just Democrats, et cetera, et cetera. The minute I disagree, like 5% on trans issues or crime, everybody's like, wait, that's right, right. Almost every show is saying that. Almost every show.
That's not well. For some of them, that is true. But it's annoying because they don't even represent the majority of the party. They're just like deranged, like left-wing media. But I mean, Sam Cedar doesn't do that. David Pacman wouldn't do that. I don't think Brian Tyler Cohen would do that. Like the Pod Save America dudes. I don't think any of those guys would do that. I don't think so. It's just like the crazy Twitter lunatics.
So you're telling me that you don't push people out? You're pushing out the movement overall, at least the online left movement, seems to be trying to push out the one network that is.
Yeah, this is the audience that you've created, right? These are the types of people that you attract because you intentionally crafted them to be this way.
out-progresses more than any other network, and it's not in dispute. But my God, we have 5% disagreement. So tear it down, tear it down. This is the destructive extreme left that I honestly, that portion, that kind of destructive attitude is poison. It's not just poison to us, it's poison to our chances of winning. Because we keep pushing people out, we keep pushing people out, and then all of a sudden we lost all the swing states and we lost the popular vote. I'm trying to get our side to wake up, snap out of our hypnosis of we hate, and if we hate the right wing, and they're all white supremacists, and they're all racist, and they're all sexist, and we hate, and we never go in the room with them, we hate. What the hell happened to us? And no one's allowed to disagree. We're now authoritarian. No,
wait,
I rebel.
can I just clarify?
I will never allow the left to be authoritarian, and this idea of just hating the other side is poison.
You know what's so funny about you calling the left authoritarian is that you think the left has power. Like, I love that you think
total nonsense,
we are on the precipice of real authoritarianism and real fascism, and you believe that the online left are the authoritarians. I mean, I don't know how to tell you. You sound like Bill Maher and Nancy Pelosi had a kid, and it came out, Cenk Uygur. And let me just ask.
She's being a little bit obtuse here because it seems like Cenk is kind of talking about the media environment, maybe, but not that obtuse. I think it's a fair statement. Like, the left is authoritarian because lefties online try to cancel you. Like, you know that Donald Trump is like an actual authoritarian, right? Like, I think she's more correct than that. Like, that's like she's hitting on a slightly different point, but it is true. This is the point that I harp on over and over again. Like, is the radical left bad? Yes. And if I was like a college kid and I was trying to fuck some crazy hippie girl or whatever, or not hippies anymore, I don't know, some woke girl, then like the radical left would really mind fuck me. But I'm an American citizen and I live under a U.S. federal government, and 90% of MAGA is radical and authoritarian. I'm way more concerned with that than the crazy people on like college campuses.
Let me just ask you. So what shows on the left do you like that aren't on the TYT network?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so I said, look, there's a lot of good popular shows on the left that I like, and it's because there are. So
what? She's gonna make an answer that, right? Wait, why would he say that? Hello?
Let me just ask you. So what shows on the left do you like that aren't on the TYT network?
Yeah, so I said, look, there's a lot of good popular shows on the left that I like. And
fuck. Hold on one second. Ooh. Okay, sorry. All right.
And it's because there are. So Breaking Point's a good show. Kyle Kulinski's Secular Talk is a good show. He was
okay. Well, he named some. Okay, Breaking Points and Kyle Kulinski.
against me going on MAGA. I haven't seen his video, but Kyle's been against us a couple of times. But I largely didn't hold a grudge on that.
But let me just stop you. First of all, you had a great conversation with Crystal Ball. I think she made some really good points to you on. I think it was on Breaking Points.
Yeah.
Kyle has, I think, been very disturbed, especially by your appearance with Charlie Kirk. But what you just said there, they've been against us. I really want to just dig into this idea that, because you're a fighter, man. That's cool. That's great. But like, you really do have a very, I almost want to call it Bush-like, Cheney-like, you're with us or against us attitude.
100% wrong.
Like you just literally, I love that you're proving my point. But when I say this, you truly,
okay,
you sound like people are either against you, but if they criticize you, they are not. And yet here you are, Cenk, telling the entire right wing that all you want to do is break bread with them, that you want to debate with them, but afterward you want to go have a beer.
Yes, I do.
You want to have a beer with people who want to put people in mass deportation camps. They want to deport.
You think we're going to get put in camps? You sound all right. Anyway,
you think I sound crazy? They're starting.
Hold on, just to be clear, that's the stated policy position of Donald Trump. And I believe Abbott said as much, that we'll build the camps if you need us to hold on, let me find this. Was it Abbott? We'll build detention facilities. Trump transition officials are exploring the possibility of building immigrant detention facilities on a plot of land recently purchased by the state of Texas along the Rio Grande, according to a person familiar with discussions. Texas Governor Greg Abbott spoke to President-elect Donald Trump's incoming border czar, Tom Homan, last week about using military resources to help transport migrants to the location and about building facilities, according to the person with knowledge of the discussions. The difference between MAGA and the left is that anytime MAGA talks about the left, they're like, oh, this person on Twitter said this thing. These are statements made literally made by people who are in the government or who are the government, the president. This was at the RNC that Trump himself, and Cenk was at. Oh, yeah. Like, come on, you really think these guys want to deport people? Why? Oh, why? No, come on. Like, bro.
Chinese people. That's my fucking family, dog. Like, what are you talking about?
That's such an excuse. Okay, they're going to start with Muslims. They're going to start with my people. Okay,
sure.
So stop hiding behind vulnerable communities.
I'm hiding behind vulnerable communities.
Yes, you are. You're using
I'm standing in front of vulnerable communities.
No,
what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm in front of vulnerable communities. I'm the most endangered friend.
By tweeting at Elon Musk? Please, no, help me. Come on, Cenk. This is so sad. That's so sad. Let's get that. Let's simmer down. No. Simmer down. Let me just ask you real honest to God.
You already said 12 things that I need to respond to. Can I respond to them?
No, I want to ask you this one question. Let's talk about you going on these shows. Just simmer down. Let me ask you one question. Imagine if Kamala Harris had won. Okay, she wins. She wins a popular vote. She wins obviously the Electoral College. Incredible, first female president. Blah blah blah. All this stuff.
Oh man, what's she going to ask? Is she going to say, "What would the conservatives do to reflect on their loss?" What do you think they would do? Or is she going to say, "Cenk, what would you do? Would you be this warm to people? Would you be screaming at Kamala? Where's she going to go with this? Oh boy.
And Tucker Carlson started making all these rounds on like really like progressive leftist shows, went on Kyle's show, went on my show. I'm like, who the hell? Started reaching out and wanting to talk and wanting to come to agreement on things. What would that look like to you?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Yeah, it would look like Tucker was trying to reach out. Tucker's a bad example because I'd
Really? Man, wow.
be surprised if he did that. But okay, yeah, no problem.
What would it look like to you?
I wouldn't. Well, I don't. And do I think that Tucker would be selling out? No. There's no chance.
No. Well, I'm not. It's not about selling out. What would that like? What would it just seem like? Hey, man, we can agree. Yeah, you know what? I did say that Kamala Harris was a DEI hire and she's basically a communist. But now I just feel like I've antagonized you and I'm here to like break bread and let's talk and let's get stuff done. What would that look like to you?
It would look surprising, but I wouldn't care. I find it interesting. Why?
I wouldn't care. He won't answer the question. Bro, this is so insane to me. This is so bad. I'm thinking so much about identifying like who can I align myself with for next year, even if I shouldn't have to have full agreement with people. Like I do agree with that, and I feel like I'm open to different ideas. But like when I see people like navigate conversations like this, it makes me not care. Even if we align on like 98% of issues, like this is such an unbelievable way to navigate a conversation. Like how are you trying so hard to miss the point here? You got like the blinders on full force. What are we doing here?
What would that look like to you?
It would look surprising, but I wouldn't care. I find it interesting. Why? What does it look like to you?
I mean, to me, if Tucker Carlson did that.
See, and now she got baited because it was a good question. This is a really good question that she asked. And Cenk can't answer it because he knows that any answer he gives is going to make him look crazy. Because the obvious answer that she's probably going to give is that, like, well, it's going to look like Tucker is grifting. He's pandering. He's just trying to maintain relevance. Like, he's not clearly coming with our positions. I would never let him escape a lifetime of Republican shilling just to become a Democratic stooge. And any type of bread breaking or bridge building he's doing is only being done facetiously to build support for when he goes all the way back to those positions in the next election, would be my guess.
I'd be like, oh, we fucking won. We won like crazy. We won so resoundingly. He's doing an apology tour because 3 ghosts visited him in the middle of the night and he's completely changed his tune because he wants to throw down with the winners. We are crushing it. And I saw
That's true. Okay.
In that moment, you want me to play it for you? When Charlie Kirk goes, we're glad Cenk's here, everybody. And that was the feeling that I think a lot of right-wingers have when they look at you, Cenk, where they're like, damn, yo, we crushed so hard. Even this guy is turning now.
Yeah, except I'm not turning. I've said it 2,000 times.
I'm just saying what it would look like. I'm just saying what it would look like.
Keep saying it like it's true when it isn't remotely true. But okay, let me address it. So, okay, number one, you're empirically wrong because guess what's happening? Matt Gaetz has reached out to us, Tucker Carlson, to come on our shows. And so it's your exact analogy, okay? Patrick Bet-David, et cetera, et cetera. And they won. They're still trying to come on the Young Turks. Why? Because they're trying to have a conversation, not because they want to do an apology tour. They think they are ascendant, but nevertheless, they want to talk to the left.
But you had to make it's because they think that you're.
Your version of the left says, no way, we never talk to the other side. But we're not authoritarian.
Okay, now the strawman. Yes, always.
Like, that's not true.
You're not allowed to disagree 1%, but we're not authoritarian. We have no power, so we're not authoritarian. So that's not how it works, Franny. And the establishment Democrats are also authoritarian. So what do they say? You must agree with Kamala Harris, otherwise that's it. You're a heretic and you'll be driven out from the party. You know that. The establishment Democrats have done that to us for the last 20 years. Don't tell me that there's no power on the left. There's tons of power on the left. And when the swarm comes...
The establishment Dems don't like you because you shit on the establishment Dems constantly. You always talk about how Bernie Sanders had the election stolen from him over and over again, and the corporate Dems and the donor class, and they own the Dems just like the Republicans. But yeah, no shit, they don't fucking like you, dog. What the fuck?
The left-wing swarm. Oh, you like it called a woman. You racist, fascist, terror, transport. What? I'm not authoritarian. No, that is an authoritarian mindset. Just you don't have to have power to have an authoritarian mindset. And there's different versions of power. There's the shunning power. There's social media power. There's mainstream media power. There's political power. There's all sorts of different power. So look, guys, the left. First of all,
there's also just money and actual power.
It gets back to the we. So you ask me politically, who do I represent? I represent the great majority of left-wing voters. The great majority of left-wing voters are not pro-establishment. They get tricked by mainstream media into voting in that direction. It drives me absolutely nuts. But when you ask them about policies, they agree with us completely on policies, right? And the great majority of left-wing voters are not far left. They think a woman should be called a woman. And I'm not saying that in some dismissive way. I'm in favor of trans rights. If you want to be called a birthing person, we love it. We got no problem with it. You be called a birthing person. But when you say no, you call everyone a birthing person. America hates it. Left-wing voters hate it.
I just want to say,
no crime. Left-wing voters hate it. So I'm standing up for the overwhelming majority of Democratic voters and left-wing voters.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
Authoritarian sides of the left saying, you're not allowed to disagree with establishment. You're not allowed to disagree with extreme left. No, I am allowed. I am allowed.
Hang on. Wait, please. I don't want to lose the forest for the trees here, truly. And I hear what you're saying. I know it can feel online like a circular firing squad. I understand.
Feeling it percent. It happens every time.
I know it does. So I come from movement backgrounds, right? I've been in many spaces since the global justice movement in the early 2000s, then the anti-Iraq war movement. I've been in a lot of organizing spaces. I have been in more organizing spaces, far left spaces than I have in campaigns, political campaigns, for example. So I know those spaces very well. I know we can often over-police one another. I know we can tear each other's throats out. I absolutely concede that. I do agree with that. At this moment, sad to say, that's not the biggest fish we have to fry. In fact, we are in, again, a moment just before Project 2025 will be implemented, and people like myself, people who are on the streets demonstrating for Palestine, will be recommended for deportation, among many other things. But of course, I guess maybe I'm using that as a shield. I don't know, according to you. But I did want to ask, Cenk, before this, I want to ask you about who the establishment is in your mind. Who is the establishment and who is not the establishment?
Great question. So
the establishment is the Corpo Dems donor class hates Palestinians. Corpo Dems donor class. Corpo Dems donor class. Remember, hit always those 2 points, okay? Corpo Dems donor class.
Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, all the corporate Democrats who take corporate PAC money, serve their corporate donors 100%, lie to us 24/7, never intend to do any progressive policy positions, never intend
except for all the legislation that Biden passed and things like the ACA and everything else they do, except for the things they actually do. But that doesn't count. But okay.
do any Democratic policy positions that they state in campaigns and are backed by the liars in mainstream media, pretending that they're on our side when they're playing good cop, bad cop with establishment Republicans and robbing us blind on behalf of their donors.
Do you think that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are establishment?
So they're complicated. The reason they're complicated is because they
Donald Trump
bad cop with establishment Republicans and robbing us blind on behalf of their donors.
Do you think that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are establishment?
When do you become the establishment? So I think it's pretty easy to say that the most prestigious political office you can hold in the United States of America is to be the president of the United States of America. Donald Trump has now been elected to that office a second time. The entire Republican establishment supports Trump. The media is willing to lie for Trump, as evidenced in Dominion v. Fox News. The alternative media is willing to lie for Trump, as evidenced by literally all of the right-wing alternative media. There is a consensus that you must support Trump as a candidate or else you will be bullied out of the space, as evidenced by Rogan's tepid support for RFK initially, and then Rittenhouse's support for a libertarian candidate after Donald Trump banned bump stocks. At what point, and now Donald Trump has the support of the wealthiest people in the world. More wealth has walked in and out of Mar-a-Lago in the past month collectively than has existed 100 times over in net worth in the history of all of Congress. Like, at what point do you become the establishment? Like, are we going to be calling Donald Trump, like, was Hitler the anti-establishment candidate in 1941? Like, how long are you anti-establishment for? Or how long are you no longer the establishment? Like,
so they're complicated. The reason they're complicated is because they act like the establishment. They do the same robberies, the same corporate tax cuts, but they are pretending to be populist. And that's why I've called Donald Trump a fake populist hundreds of times.
Why wouldn't... Now, that's a really interesting point. Why wouldn't you say that to Charlie Kirk? Why would you pretend like they're both the same? Why would you pretend like you're all the same?
Right? And I've called him a fake populist on right-wing shows. And I've said...
When? Really? Fake populist? Wait, did he say that? Did we miss that on some shows? When was that?
Watch out for your own donors on right-wing shows, right? And so, but they're not part of this the machine that was the Borg. Mitch McConnell and Joe Biden were the co-captains of the Borg, and that machine was unstoppable. And that machine was,
What is the machine? It's not the largest cable news network in the world. It's not Fox News. That's not part of the machine. It's not the institution of all the Republicans, right? That's not part of the machine. It's not the White House and the DOJ that Donald Trump was trying to get to work at SBS. That's not part of the machine. It's not. What is the machine here? How do we define the machine?
Maintains corporate rule, and that's my mortal enemy. That Borg is the one we should all be fighting against.
So do you think it's less bad that one person donates $277 million to a candidate versus 5 people donating $277 million to a candidate? Elon Musk gave $277 million to Donald Trump.
Also, just as a quick correction, this is not true that Elon Musk gave $277 million. Okay, Elon Musk spent in excess of $44 billion because he bought Twitter to give Trump the election. Okay, don't ever fucking forget that. That purchase of Twitter was leveraged to help Trump win the election. He stole that Ad America account in order to advertise for Donald Trump. Elon Musk, the owner of Twitter, whose tweets get pushed more to any other account on that website, explicitly supported Trump over and over and over and over and over again. Okay, this was part of winning the campaign, was buying Twitter.
Now, again, worth $400 billion. Is that somehow less establishment in your mind?
So there's 2 parts of it, Franny. One is they at least talk the populist game, and the advantage of that is that also spread through the right-wing base. That, hey, them faking populism, remember the people that are hearing that message don't realize it's fake, right? Mm-hmm. So they're talking anti-war, they're talking anti-corporate. You see
44 billion. Some people are saying 400 billion. I said 44 billion. Sorry if I mispronounced that.
Tucker Carlson talking anti-corporate. You see Steve Bannon saying we should increase corporate taxes. That doesn't mean Steve Bannon's an angel, but what it does mean, or anywhere near it, but what it does mean is that idea of populism and anti-establishment, et cetera, is spreading throughout the right wing. That is an amazing opportunity for us to actually coalesce on economic populism that they now believe in, even if their leader doesn't, right? So that's point 1, and it's super important. Point 2 is, in some ways, that individual corruption is worse, and in some ways it's better. So how's it worse? So Miriam Adelson gives, $137 million.
By that rationale, wouldn't being banned from Twitter have lost the 2020 election for Trump? When do you think Trump was banned from Twitter? This is another crazy thing that Republicans do. They play with timelines so much. Wasn't Trump banned after the J6 stuff? That was what he was banned. The election was already over, my dude. That was after the election.
To Trump, and Sheldon Adelson had given him $200 million in previous campaigns. So he delivers foreign policy to the Adelson family, right? Moved our embassy in his first term. Now he's thinking about allowing the annexation of northern Gaza and the West Bank. And you saw me fight tooth and nail against Trump because that's what I was really, really worried about, that he's going to go and be extreme and radical to serve his top donors. On Elon, he handed all of domestic policy to him. So that's how it's worse. How in the world could it be at the same time a little bit better? Well, the way that it's better is that it's not a machine. It's chaotic. So it's one guy here and another person there, but the other person disagrees with Miriam, and then Trump doesn't quite know what to do, and he listens to the last person in the room, but he also kind of listens to his base. We've got chaos there, and chaos is way better than a machine. A machine is ruthless and just steamrolls you. So
I think
nothing worse than the McConnell-Biden era. Nothing worse.
Okay, I do want to talk about the McConnell-Biden era and establishment a little bit more, but just on that, I feel like my very first question to you is, well, what are you doing? I feel like that's the most cogent answer I've gotten from you that I could sort of get on board with, which is exploit the chaos to turn MAGA against Trump. But even if you wanted to do that, I'm not sure you're achieving it through the kinds of interviews that you're doing and the way that you're playing to the right, especially when you go on those stages. And
you have to be at least as aggressive, or maybe not as aggressive, but at least some kind of aggressiveness. You know, go and look at my interviews as a template, okay? Maybe not even that level of aggression, but at least something approaching that. Jesus.
Hit the left more than you do the right. But I just want to leave that there. I accept the hey, let's plant the booby traps so that we can make them fall into them later, that kind of thing. That makes the most sense to me, even if I sort of strategically disagree with it. I want to talk about the establishment, though, and Mitch McConnell. So, for example, Mitch McConnell, who I am no fan of, obviously, believes that there should not be recess appointments for the Trump administration. Would you say that that is establishment, ergo you are anti that and anti-establishment?
Mitch McConnell is against recess appointments.
Yes.
So that was a super tough one because sometimes the establishment will block someone. Like if Bernie was president.
So to be clear, because I didn't even understand these that well, I still don't understand this well. My understanding is a recess appointment is basically when Congress is not in session. I think that the president has the ability to appoint somebody to a cabinet, maybe any position, but at least a cabinet level position, and they don't need the consent of the Senate to do so. And that when you bring Congress back in session, you can just basically keep delaying indefinitely, you can delay like the actual appointment process, and you basically just have a new acting head for however long, and they didn't actually need an appointment from the Senate to be there. When Trump talks about abusing recess appointments, that's what he's talking about. Not just like I have to appoint somebody in a time of congressional recess. It's like abusing the process to get an acting head in that was never confirmed by the Senate.
So that was a super tough one because sometimes the establishment will block someone. Like if Bernie was president and he wanted to put in Stephanie Kelton as Treasury Secretary, I actually would disagree with that. But I put that as an example. The establishment would say no way, and it would block it with everything that they have. There is a scenario where I would say, Bernie, do a recess appointment, right? And so on the other hand, if Bernie came in and said, I don't care about advising consent of the Senate, I'm just going to do everyone as a recess appointment, I would say, no, don't do that. Don't do that. That's not a good idea.
Why?
So,
because it's anti-democratic. Was that?
Yeah, the core.
Sure.
So
then apply this to the current admin. Stop making a hypothetical out of it. Like, it's so funny. When he's asked a hypothetical, he can't engage with it, and he just gives his personal feeling on a thing. Like, how do you feel about if Trump were to do this? Well, personally, I wouldn't like it, and then here's something that's totally unrelated. And then when given a real-world situation, he has to create a hypothetical. What the fuck?
The core of the question is, when we talk about the system, what do we mean by the system? Because there's two different systems that people refer to, and then they conflate them. The system we want to protect is democracy, the Constitution, civil rights, etc. That's a system that we love and believe in. The system we do not want to protect and we want to fight against is donor money, establishment, protecting the status quo, protecting corporate rule. So separate those two things out, because the permanent system of the Constitution and democracy is great. The current system of corruption and establishment rule is horrible.
So how do recess appointments help you get rid of the one and save the other? What?
Yeah. Do you understand that the right actually just conflates?
Oh, man, no, she should have gone back and asked him again. So hold on. So let's go back. And what do you think about Trump wanting to use recess appointments? Like, give an actual take on that.
The current system of corruption and establishment rule is horrible.
Yeah. Do you understand that the right actually just conflates those two things?
I think the left often conflates those two things too.
Well, okay, so you would be in favor of Donald Trump doing recess appointments, or you wouldn't in this case?
Thank you. Yes.
So
good. Refocus. Yes. If
he's doing blanket recess appointments, I'm against it. I always think shoe on the other foot. That's why I brought up Bernie Sanders. In order to be fair, hey, how would I feel if it was the other way around? If he does one or two, I understand it as a matter of philosophy.
Okay.
But if he does a recess appointment, I'm very likely to be against that particular person, like a Kash Patel or Pete Hegseth. He's going to do recess appointments on the most radical culture warrior stuff that I hate. I hate when the right does culture war stuff. I don't love it when the left does it, but I certainly hate it when the right does it. And so,
well, Small Fry, thanks for the 5 gifted YouTube memberships.
I'm worried about his recess appointments because of
oh no. Sorry.
The people. The specific people that he's likely to do them with.
One of those things also in terms of this establishment and anti-establishment sort of framework that you're using is also Project 2025 and Russell Vought, who he just appointed to be the head of the Office of Management and Budget. Russell Vought would like to fire federal workers, replace them with loyalists. He also wants to use the military to target political dissidents. This is all obviously in Project 2025 that he helped to offer. Is that establishment or anti-establishment? There's nothing more anti-establishment than firing a bunch of federal workers. Do you believe that that's a populist thing to do?
No, it's fake populism. And so it's so alluring to the MAGA base.
Or political dissidents. This is fire federal workers, replace them with loyalists. He also wants to use the military to target political dissidents. This is all obviously in Project 2025 that he helps you author. Is that establishment or anti-establishment? Isn't there, there's nothing more anti-establishment than firing a bunch of federal workers. Do you believe that that's a populist thing to do?
No, it's fake populism. And so it's so alluring to the MAGA base.
What does Cenk think populism is? Just when the public votes on things? Is he just mixing up populism with democracy? Or what does Cenk think populism is or means?
They feel like, oh, we're fighting against the government, right? But what I'm trying to get them to understand is, like, you guys, they think that the government is a blanket bad thing. And so the story I often tell on these shows is the one that Matt Stoller does, great progressive, done great anti-monopoly work in the Senate, et cetera, which is, hey, what size pipe should I get? And people always ask, and that's why Matt does it this way. Well, what job are you doing? It depends. And that's exactly the point that I make to these right wingers. Do we want big government or little government? Well, it depends, right? Are we invading Iraq? Then I want smaller government, right? Are we going to invade doctors' offices and get between
What? What is this analogy and analysis? We wouldn't say we're invading Iraq, so I want smaller government. We would just say this is a bad policy, and we wouldn't support the policy. It has nothing to do with it. Like, it's not like I want to invade Iraq with a smaller military. Wait, what?
or little government? Well, it depends, right? Are we invading Iraq? Then I want smaller government, right? Are we going to invade doctors' offices and get between a woman and a doctor? Then I want smaller government, right? But if we're going to protect the average American from the bankers, then I want a little bit larger government. I don't want to defund the police on Wall Street, right? So I explained that, hey, if you fire people that are at the IRS, guess who's going to help the most? The very rich who cheat on their taxes.
So they all want to audit the Pentagon, which the IRS doesn't do, but it's very interesting that, you got everyone to cheer auditing the Pentagon. But of course, the idea of auditing billionaires, the Republicans are absolutely against that because they've been trying to defund the IRS. Exactly.
Right. And remember, again, there's different layers of right wing now. There's their leaders who are almost, uniformly full of crap. Then there's, a middle bureaucracy, and then there's the voters. And the voters, and Franny, you don't have to trust me on this because those MAGA guys, they will tell you exactly what they think. They're not holding anything back. They have no need to lie to you.
Yeah, they've been telling us for many, many years.
Yeah. So they're also not lying when they say they're anti-war, anti-corruption. They might have been misdirected, but they're not lying. So what I'm trying to get them to see is firing the federal workers is not the answer.
Yeah.
Cutting the Pentagon is part of the answer.
Yeah.
And so when they say yes to cutting the Pentagon, they're not lying. The MAGA voters actually want to cut the Pentagon.
What do you think?
Is a completely different question. And
Okay,
so one more
we'll
thing
see
that's
about
super
that.
important, though. It's not a booby trap, Franny. I understand what you're saying, and that's one way to frame it. But in my mind, when you have people who actually agree, you're not tricking them. You're just getting them to see, guys, you wanted to cut the Pentagon, but look, your leaders didn't cut the Pentagon. So do you see how they led you astray? Right? I'm actually getting
Hold on, I feel like people forget this. That already happened, right? Like Donald Trump was already president and he increased the military budget and he talked about that this already, you don't have to wait and see, right? Like this has already happened. Why do we think why do we think another 4 years is going to change that reality? Like this has already happened. Oh my God, I unplugged something.
doing the things they promised. On the other hand, sometimes Trump responds to his base. So if that base gets angry enough and says, hey, let's cut the Pentagon, maybe Trump does cut the Pentagon, where Biden never would, McConnell never would. In the Biden-McConnell era, the Pentagon's only going to get increased forever and ever and ever. Corruption is always going to
Why do you think that those people wouldn't be responsive to voters, but Trump would be? How does that even make sense?
increase forever and ever and ever.
I mean, wait, just on this.
advantage for us is that he likes to.
Is saying bigger or smaller government a good way to phrase spending more or less on something? No, it's a different question. It's like this is a policy position. Do you want the government to do this? Not how much money or what size should they be doing this thing for? Like this is the equivalent of how do you feel about the war in Iraq and the government there? The answer is, well, I don't want our government to have the policy position of going to war with Iraq. At least for unjustified reasons, right? Not like, well, I want a smaller government when it comes to war. That's just a weird way to phrase it. That's like saying, to do a rape analogy, right? Would you be okay? Like, let's say somebody goes to rape you. Like, what's your position on that? Well, I hope they have a smaller dick. Like, what? It's just a nonsense statement. Like, what?
to be popular. He just doesn't know how. So.
Sure. So I just really want to, just drill down on a couple of those things.